that Mandy and me will also chip in with some questions, and then we'll open the floor up for everybody to talk and get on with this interesting discussion that we're going to have today. So thank you all for being with us, and wonderful. Let's get going. Thank you.
Right. Thanks, Pitu. So I will welcome Neeraj and our other two panelists who I will introduce later. And they are, of course, Amrit Moni Mathur, as we know him, and Javed Ahmed. But let me start by introducing our main speaker of the evening, which is no other than Neeraj Kumar, who is actually in college doing his chemistry. Can I just request everyone to put themselves on mute, please, if in the audience? So we have minimal sort of background noise. Thank you. So he was in college in 73, he finished his BSc in chemistry and went on to do his MSc in 75, then joined the cops and became variously DCP crime and traffic. And there's something about anti-traffic later, which we'll hear about that. And IGP in Mizoram, Goa, and of course, he finished as Commissioner of Police in Delhi. So from his 37 years of service, 9 were spent in the CBI. And that's where, you know, he did a lot of cracking of cases, going after all the gangsters, and really took the cops and robbers story in a personal and a good way. So much so that he was involved in leading the investigations for the 93 Mumbai blasts. And he also caught Gujarat's Underworld Don, a guy called Abdul Latif, who some of us must have read about. In 2012, he was also investigating the lead investigation he carried for Nirbhaya case, and also the spot fixing in the IPL in 2013, some of which will, of course, be revealed as we hear him a little later. He's got a few medals for his service, and he was also the anti-corruption head for BCCI, which is how he will tell us some great inside stories on his third book that he's writing now called Inside Out, which is a working title, I'm told. Now, his first book actually was Dial D for Dawn, which sounded like a very much Ajit kind of a lob, but that was what it was. And apparently it has some 11 riveting police encounters, and the movie and the book rights were sold to Bollywood, you know, as for movie. And very interestingly, which I'm sure a lot of us have seen, this amazing serial that happened on something called Khaki Files. That was based on his second book. Oh, sorry, it was called Delhi Crime, the serial, and it was based on his book called Khaki Files. And it just so happens that he's also had a daughter and a son-in-law who were in college. Not many of us manage that nowadays, I noticed. But also has a keen sense of humor, because I know from the alumni WhatsApp group, the occasional sort of pun or quip that I make, his is the loudest groan, but I have a feeling he might be grown used to it now. So over to you, Neeraj, and I think you should really be telling us how you really fouled the pitch for the cricket fixers and bowled a googly back at them. Good to know that you know, not many gave you the slip, and you might have unraveled their spin, even as they sent out the occasional bouncers after you. So I know you did it all with aplomb, without a crease on your forehead. So with all that, up boliye. Thank you.
Thank you. Mandy, first of all, thank you for that lovely introduction. I also thank Pitu to give me this opportunity to speak to our senior Stephanian group. And indeed, I'm very happy to be here this evening. I have prepared a small presentation just to, you know, kind of break the monotony of my speech. If I have, yeah, here it goes. I hope everybody can see it. Corruption in cricket is something that you know, interests all of us. I mean, all people who are interested in cricket, and in our country, most of us are. And we all feel that corruption in cricket is something which must have originated in the Indian subcontinent, because most of the cases, major cases of corruption that have made news worldwide have taken place here, whether it is in Pakistan or in India, and sometimes even in Sri Lanka and Bangladesh. But you may be surprised to know that the first instances of corruption in cricket came from none other than the country from where this game originated, which is England. And the first recorded case is that of a cricketer called William Lambert, and that was as early as 1818. And he gave away a match. He threw a match for a small consideration. And soon after him came another English cricketer called Billy Bendham, who played for Surrey, and he too, got compromised by bookies, who used to all gather at a pub on Oxford Street. The address then used to be 335 Oxford Street. And that is where the bookies gathered, and so did some of the cricketers who were just only too eager to interact with bookies and do their biddings. Quite interestingly, the origin of cricket took place in England, and so did corruption in the game. This is something which is not very widely known. And forget about William Lambert and Billy Bendham. Even somebody as redoubtable and as respected as Mr. W.G. Grace, who is arguably one of the best cricketers that the game has known. Even he is known to have been a cheat, and he also seems to have been compromised on a couple of occasions. And there are instances where he would not leave the crease after being given out. And there is another instance that is recorded, is that he went on a tour to Australia. I think it was in 1873. And he took the team. He was captaining England. He took the team to a mining town called Kadina, when the team was actually supposed to be playing at Adelaide. And he did that for a neat sum of money, and for which he was described in the local newspapers as mean and a cunning cricketer. So this is the background of corruption in cricket. Of course, in the 20th century, there were instances of cricket corruption all over the cricketing world, in Pakistan, in Australia, and very venerable names like Shane Warne, like Mark Waugh, and Wasim Akram, and so on. Almost everybody seems to have been compromised in one way or the other. But the case that really shook the game to its foundation was the Hansi Cronje case. He, as you know, in the year 2000, Delhi police was monitoring a certain telephone in connection with a complaint of extortion that a businessman in Karol Bagh was getting from a number in Dubai. And during the course of those interceptions, the Delhi police found out that Dubai number was in touch with several other numbers in Delhi. And when those numbers were taken under observation, there was some talk of betting and fixing, and the name of Hansi Cronier came up, and the cops who were monitoring those phones, the poor chaps, they didn't even know who Hansi Cronier was. And when they shared this information with their superiors, fortunately, one of them could recognize Hansi Cronier's voice. And he said he was pretty sure that it was Hansi Cronier himself. And then when more detailed investigations were done, it was found that they were all in touch with a certain bookie in back home in South Africa, who was in touch with none other than a bookie in Delhi called Sanjeev Chawla, and three other fellow bookies, Bhushan Kumar, the brother of you know, the T series owner, and there was another guy called Kalra, and a few others. And so this whole thing, when the Delhi police made it public, nobody was prepared to believe that someone of the caliber of Hansi Cronier would be corrupt, could be compromised, and for a small sum of money could be throwing away games. It was just beyond anybody's belief. And most of all in his home country, where he was some kind of an icon, comparable only to Nelson Mandela. I mean, there was Nelson Mandela and there was Hansi Cronier, a symbol of probity, rectitude, and the unity between the white community and the black community, and so on and so forth. So they were all incredulous. They would not believe that this was true, and there were strong denials that Delhi police was, fibbing, and very soon they'll be found out. Till one day, Mr. Cronier, he confessed to his manager, Dr. Ali Bakar, that he had indeed been dishonest on his last tour of Delhi of India. And when this news broke, it not only created a havoc in South Africa, but all over the cricketing world, and it broke the hearts of cricket lovers, because he was the ultimate symbol of honesty and so on. So it was like an idol being brought down, and people just wouldn't believe. And when the King's Commission appointed by the Nelson Mandela government went into instances of corruption, his fellow cricketers were also hauled up, like Herschel Gibbs, Boye, Nicky Boye, there was Lance Klusener, and there was Henry Williams, and so on. So Sanjeev Chawla was extradited to India, but it took 20 years after this scandal broke out for Sanjeev Chawla to be extradited on 16th of February 2020. And incidentally, this is the first and only extradition that has taken place so far after India and UK signed their extradition treaty. The next big bomb that blew up in everybody's face was when the CBI was asked to investigate various complaints, various rumors that were going around because of an interview that Manoj Prabhakar, another cricketer, test cricketer of the country, had given to an Outlook magazine And in that interview, he had suggested that a very senior cricketer had, approached Manoj Prabhakar to throw away a match in favor of Pakistan. That was pretty shocking. People kind of guessing game went on, and most people knew who he was hinting at, but yet people were not believing. And finally, the government of the day ordered the CBI to probe the case. The CBI began a probe, but it was not making any headway. In 2000 and in 2000 and year 2000, in the month of May, the CBI registered an inquiry, and for almost a month it was not making any headway. Till one day, one informant came and met me, and he said one M.K. Gupta wanted to surrender to me. Now, I had no clue who M.K. Gupta was, and the informant was pretty shocked, and he said, "Sir, he's the man you guys are looking for." So I said, "What do you mean?" He said, aren't you investigating the allegations into match fixing against Indian cricketers?" So I said, "Well, we are, the CBI is, but I'm not." He says, "No, sir. So there is this guy called M.K. Gupta. He is the prime suspect and prime accused, and he wants to surrender to you." So I said, "Why to me? Let him surrender to the person who was investigating the case." He said, "No, sir. He has heard of you because when you were DCP South, in a public meeting, he had seen you and he had met you. So he knows of you, he knows you. So he wants to, you are a known person in the CBI. So he would like to meet you and talk to you and then decide whether to surrender or not." So to cut a long story short, I met him at the Oberoi Hotel. He narrated the story of his life, how from a bank clerk he turned out to be the biggest bookie of the world. In fact, I call him the father of match fixing. M.K. Gupta, this is a picture, this is the only picture I could find on the net. He surrendered to me on the 26th of June, and I promptly handed him over to my colleague, Mr. Ravi Savani, who was inquiring into the allegations. And the rest is history, as you know. 4 cricketers, top-notch cricketers, Mohammad Azharuddin, Manoj Prabhakar, Ajay Jadeja, and Ajay Sharma. They were all banned. And M.K. Gupta, in his revelations, mentioned that virtually every well-known cricketer of the day internationally was on his payroll. You can start with Arvinder De Silva, Arjuna Ranatunga, Dean Jones, the Wog brothers, Brian Lara, Alex Stewart, and not all of them had thrown away matches or had done his bidding, but they were on his take. They were taking money from him and giving him inside information about pitches, weather, likelihood of which team will win, team composition, and so on and so forth. So that was the CBI inquiry. The next big case that came was again this IPL spot fixing case of 2013, which I think some of you and most of you would remember. This happened on the 15th of May. At that time, I was the Commissioner of Police and I was closely monitoring how the case was progressing. And this case, which ended in the banning of Srishant, who is on the screen, and 2 other cricketers, Ajit Chandila and one more, Amit Chavan, Ankit Chavan, sorry, all 3 of Rajasthan Royals. This operation and their arrest led to a series of events, right from the institution of the Mudgal committee, followed by the Loda committee, and followed by a number of top BCCI honchos being sacked, including N. Srinivasan and so on. And after I retired, I'm kind of, in the interest of brevity, keeping it as brief as possible. After I retired in 2013, in 2015, I was taken in as the head of the anti-corruption unit. And sorry, I forgot to mention the most important thing, that the investigation of the 2000 spot fixing case led us to none other than Dawood Ibrahim, who is on the screen, because we found, we intercepted his conversations with his cronies, who were in touch with the Indian bookies, who in turn were in touch with the cricketers. Here is a chart, a chart of organizational chart, so to say. You can see Dawood Ibrahim right at the top. Chota Shakil is his immediate lieutenant. So is a person called Dr. Javed Chutani, based in Dubai. And through network, they are in touch with the cricketers, Ankit Chavan, Ajit Chandila, and S. Srishant. They were on the take, not realizing that whatever they were doing at the behest of the gangster Dawood Ibrahim. So after I retired from service in 2013, in 2015, I received an offer from the BCCI to take up the job of the Chief of Anti-Corruption Unit. And I thought that I have been kind of selected because of my association with all the cases that I just talked about. But I'll briefly tell you what were my experiences of the BCCI. First of all, I realized that despite these powerful shocks that the cricket community in general and BCCI in particular had received over the years, they were not interested in dealing with corruption. All I had by way of resources were two people. Moni knows about my condition then, because our tenures there kind of overlapped. I just had two people, and I had the whole cricket corruption thing to look after. But despite our constraints, we did manage to bust a few things. And one of them was that we busted private leagues. Now, much like the IPL, some states have started their own leagues. You must have heard of the Karnataka Premier League. You must have heard of the Tamil Nadu Premier League. And then there are other leagues, which are private leagues. Now, on your screen, you see Rajwada Premier League being organized. On the first picture, on the top left, there is one Mr. Amin Pathan, who is the secretary of the Rajasthan Cricket Association. Surprisingly, being an important office bearer of the State Cricket Association, he on his own privately starts this league called Rajwada Premier League. So what he does is he invites some Bollywood celebrities. Like here you can see Chandrachud Singh next to him. He also invites some all-time cricket greats like Sanar Jayasuriya and some others, like Tilak Ratne Dilshan, Kyle Miles, also some Bollywood celebrities like Zareen Khan. And that attracts a lot of media attention, public attention. But what follows is that all the matches are totally rigged. Every ball is rigged, every over is rigged. And in a situation, just to give you an example, a certain team, I think it was Jodhpur Jaguars, they required 17 runs to win in the last over. Uh, they were pitted against, I forget the name of the team, but anyhow, 17 runs. And they got 17 runs in the first 3 balls. How? Because the bowler bowled wides, and there was such wides that they went to the boundary line. So that made it 10. And in the next ball, the man hit a 6, and it was also a no ball. And that's how the match went one way, because the stakes were so heavily loaded against the opposing team that the bookies had people who were managing the show. They put all their money on the team which was likely to lose the match, but it ended up winning. Similar league was organized in Rajputana in Jaipur, called Rajputana Premier League, which we managed to bust. ACU, the anti-corruption unit of the BCCI, managed to bust it, and we arrested 14 people with the help of the Jaipur police, and recovered a whole lot of cash and phones and so on. Now, another aspect that we found out was that cricket was being used for what is called kabutarbazi. Kabutarbazi is a colloquial term for illegal trafficking. Cricket teams were being taken abroad to Australia, New Zealand, and other places by this guy, Ravinder Singh Dandiwal of Mohali, who was, when he would return from those countries, he will leave more than half of the team behind in those countries. And that's how he was making a lot of money from the people who were being trafficked. He also organized, this is a picture of Willow Fest Championship held in Australia, for which he had taken a team from Punjab. This is another operation we did in Kanpur with the help of the Kanpur police, and busted a gang of people who were doctoring the pitch. This is another case where you see this guy called Vijay Barate in the center of the picture, alongside VVS Lakshman and Tom Moody and Srikanth, and he was actually cheating budding cricketers, giving them the impression that he was scouting for talent for the Sunrisers Hyderabad, and taking huge sums of money. So this, in brief, was my experience. The bottom line is that the BCCI, for all its pretensions of fighting corruption, is not really interested in doing it. And whatever I experienced in the BCCI, I have written in my third book, which hopefully by the middle of this year will be out. Then, now of having kind of touched upon corruption in cricket, I will quickly come to my brush with the underworld. It happened that in 1993, I went on deputation to the CBI, and the first case that came my way was the serial blast of 1993, which took place in Mumbai. 10 blasts went off within a period of 40 minutes or so. Nearly 300 people were killed. Crores of rupees of property was damaged. About 600 people were injured, and so on. And it was found that the blasts were managed masterminded by the underworld of Mumbai, which was headed by Dawood Ibrahim, whose gang is popularly referred to as D Company. I'm running out of time, so I have to rush through. One of the co-accused in the bomb blast was Tiger Memon. While investigating the Bombay bomb blast case, we arrested Yaqub Memon on 5th of August. And then another operation we conducted with the Gujarat police, in which we arrested a man called Abdul Latif. That was on 9th October 1995. A film was made on Abdul Latif called Rais, in which no less than Mr. Shah Rukh Khan was the lead. He played Abdul Latif. Another gangster that I arrested while I was in the CBI in 1998 was Romesh Sharma. He was a gangster masquerading as Neta. He lives in Mayfair Gardens in South Delhi, and he was heading a political party, and he was, in extortion and all that at the behest of the underworld. He was the front of the D company in Delhi. And the last case I'll like to mention in connection with the underworld is Aftab Ansari. He was the mastermind of the attack on American Center in Calcutta in the year 2002. On the attack took place on 22nd of January 2002. I was still in the CBI, and the case came to me. I managed to get Aftab Ansari arrested in Dubai, and had him arrested, had him deported to India. And in that, one had to work in close connection with our ambassador in the UAE, Mr. KC Singh. And it was a major operation which involved the Dubai authorities as well. So actually what Mandy has called my brush with the underworld was not exactly a brush, but it was a long interface, a long affair, I should say, which started in 1993 and went on till 2013. I'll just like to close going back to the 2013 spot fixing case, that when we named Dawood Ibrahim as the prime accused in that case, and when the news became viral or went in the public domain, it was all over the TV, I got a call on my mobile from an unknown number, and the caller, whose voice I was very familiar with, I'll tell you in a minute how. It was none other than Dawood Ibrahim, who said, "Sir, अब तो आप 15-20 दिन में रिटायर होने जा रहे हो, अब तो मेरा पीछा छोड़ दो." And before I could react, he hung up. So it was a veiled kind of threat that, well, now you'll be retired, you won't have any security and all that, so you better watch out. When my first brush with the underworld happened through a person we had detained called Manish Lala. Manish Lala put me on to Dawood Ibrahim, and I spoke to him on 3 occasions because Dawood Ibrahim wanted to surrender. Unfortunately, my efforts could not see the light of the day because our sister agencies, they said, "You are crossing your turf. This is not the work that CBI should be doing. You just leave it alone." And that is where my efforts came to a knot. And that's how I recognized the voice of Dawood Ibrahim. So much for my brush with the underworld. I think I am already overstepping my time limit. I hand over the proceedings back to Mandy.
Oh, thank you, Neeraj. That was quite an amazing and a riveting talk with lots of skeletons coming out of the cupboard here. And I'm so glad we have two amazing people who would know both policing and cricket at close quarters. So let me bring in our first panelist now, which is no other than Amrit Mathur, also, called by all of us affectionately as Moni Mathur. And he is also happens to be the younger brother of the older one who is called Tony Mathur, who was also a cop from college. Anyway, Moni, of course, finished, he was my batchmate. 77, he finished his eco, and MA he did in history, 79. Why he changed, we don't know. But anyway, he joined, he was also a great cricketer in college. And he was the captain of the college team. He became a member of the Delhi University team and the Rajasthan state. And whilst he was working for the railways, he was also the secretary of the Railway Sports Board. And then he resigned to join the IPL. And along with the various things that he did, which is quite amazing array of posts that he held and involvement with the world of cricket and sport, he was also the secretary of the Sports Authority of India in the Ministry of Youth Affairs and Sports, and the executive director of the Commonwealth Games. He's also been a member of the BCCI, the Indian cricket team. He was the manager of which went on to South Africa in 1992. And he was the CEO of Delhi Daredevils in the IPL. Not only that, he was also involved with the Rajasthan, Uttar Pradesh and Uttarakhand cricket associations. And he's also, quite a familiar face, both on the box as well as the print media in Hindustan Times. Moni, over to you and your take on this. I know it would be interesting to have your insight, or now you have to bat at the pitch with what Neeraj has told us. It's quite amazing, and over to you.
Thanks, Mandy. You told me I have 5 minutes, and you introduced me over 5 minutes. So time to gaya.
Lovely CV. Okay. Go for it.
Thanks, Neeraj. Very interesting what you said. And some of the things you mentioned, मुझे भी नहीं पता था उसके बारे में, regarding cricket and the various things you did as anti-corruption head. But I'll ask you only some questions about two cases which are directly investigated by Delhi police under you. One, as you mentioned, was about the 2013 IPL case where Sreesanth was arrested, sent to jail. He spent time in Tihar. I think the only Indian cricketer of any repute to have actually gone to jail. But when the matter went to court, it didn't stand. So that's one. Secondly, I think in the IPL, you were also investigating one of the IPL team owners, Raj Kundra, who apparently had admitted to betting, etc. But uska bhi kuch nahi hua. So the first question is, why didn't these two cases which you were investigated by Delhi police under you, Sreesanth and Raj Kundra, not hold up?
I'll answer your second question first. The allegations or the charge, or shall we say the evidence that we found against Raj Kundra was about betting and betting alone. He had betted on his own team, and so betting, as you know, is comes under the Gambling Act, and which is something which was not connected with our main case. Our main case was fixing. And so he, although his name did crop up, but he was not connected with the main allegation, which is the allegation of spot fixing. Therefore, what we did was we wrote to Jaipur police that he has betted, and when he was doing this gambling, he was based out of Jaipur, and so kindly register a case and investigate. And Jaipur police followed it up from there. So that is the second, your second question.
But nothing happened there.
We can't say, because as I said, we could not have done anything. If we had, for the sake of it, Zabardasti roped him in, it would have been unfair. So it was a very well considered decision that we took. And I must admit that it was my decision. I said that, Bill, let's not do something which is not right. And रगड़ने के लिए हम उसको रगड़ सकते थे, but that is not how cases ought to be investigated. The first question, why the case failed in the trial court. The reasons are too many. I mean, I will not give you all the details because the program is being recorded and it will amount to contempt of court. But the basic cause of this case and most of the cases failing is the lack of a specific law in our country to deal with corruption in sports. Corruption in sports in general and corruption in cricket in particular. Now, what is spot fixing? What is match fixing? All this is not defined, So we need to have an act if we want to control corruption. You must have read recently that even the Karnataka High Court ruled in a certain matter of KPL that no case is made out. No cheating was done if the matches were fixed. And
one minute. Yeah. So, just to put a closure on what happened to Sreesanth was released and, no charges were sort of proved against him. His ban enforced by the BCCI was sort of shortened. He's back to playing cricket. So he's playing for Kerala at the moment. The other thing you mentioned was that there's no law. I understand that. Betting is not legal. There is no law against match manipulation, whether it's underperforming, whether it's spot fixing, whether it's releasing inside information. Sri Lanka, New Zealand, Australia have this match manipulation law, and you can charge people if there's a breach. Now, in India, we don't have that. And now, as you mentioned, Karnataka said it's not even cheating. So if I'm fixing or a player is fixing, there's nothing he's doing wrong. So if that is the ground reality, how do we sort of tackle corruption in sport and cricket? What is the way out?
2 or 3 points. First of all, the last word has not been said on the 2013 spot fixing case because against the order of the trial court, the Delhi police has gone in appeal to the Delhi High Court. But for COVID, decision would have come by now. It was at its final stages of hearing. But unfortunately, because of COVID, everything has been kept on hold and everything has been pushed back. So the main point is that the last word has not been said on that case. That is one. Your second question was about the law and cheating. Well, unless and until we have a law, unless and until we have a regime, we cannot hope to tackle corruption in sports. And mind you, corruption is not there only in cricket, it is there in all other sports, including golf, if you please. So tennis, golf, in every game there is corruption and corruption of a very, very high magnitude. You said something I missed.
Well, I asked you कि कोई law नहीं है, cheating भी नहीं है, as the Karnataka High Court has said, then what do we do? How do we tackle this entire issue of corruption, whether cricket or somewhere else?
Till such time that we have a law and we can really, the police can go about arresting people and putting them in the cooler, what needs to be done is to have a very strong anti-corruption unit at the BCCI, which keeps an eye on the sport in general, which goes about educating cricketers that if they are caught, they will be behind bars and so on. But important thing is that in the absence of a law, people don't take it seriously. You are right. And the corruption, at least on the part of the bookies, those attempts will be there. Another point that you will agree with me that it is not as rampant. Corruption in cricket today is not as rampant as it was pre-2000. And it is because post Hansi Cronje case, the ICC brought in a very strong anti-corruption code, which has now been adopted. Yeah, the other point I want to say before I forget is that interestingly, Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, even Sri Lanka, and now even Zimbabwe have laws against corruption in sports. Even Zimbabwe. But surprisingly, the fountainhead of corruption in cricket, which is India today, does not have a law, which is a great pity. And here, the lobby group, the people who should press for the law are the BCCI themselves, who are serious about corruption in cricket. Jai Shah, today Mr. Jai Shah is the secretary. He can easily get the law passed if he so wanted.
Good. So we've got them on the back foot here. So obviously this is a key question, Moni. If I could now move on, because we are under a little bit of pressure of time. So might I thank you for those great insights and one very crucial question, which obviously needs to be tackled, and bring in Javed very quickly, who's our second panelist. And he's also from college doing his MA History in 1981, and he happens to be a cop as well. He's joined the IPS in 84. He has about 35 years of experience, now retired, lives in salubrious Lucknow. And one of his highlights was when he was DGP of police and the Home Secretary of UP. He had as he was sharing, a police gang of 2.5 lakh only to manage a state population of 230 million people. That is amazing, Javed. But anyway, you were also with the CBI for 12 years, and you got 2 medals for distinguished and meritorious service. And you've also been a keen cricketer. So what better than asking you to give your observations, and if you have any googly or a bouncer or something to bowl at Neeraj and ask some pointed questions. Over to you, Javed. And I must say, I guess somebody in your higher rank at some point must have told you, weed out the corruption, right? Okay, over to you.
Thanks, Mandy. Thanks very much. And it's a pleasure to be on this forum and to talk about something which all of us as Indians are passionate about. So I'll ask Neeraj sir about this problem with the BCCI, and it's probably an underarm ball that I'm bowling. Very much like the Chapel brother who did it. That when you say that the BCCI, despite all its stake in having clean cricket, does not want to do it, and the establishment with a capital E also does not want to do it, then are we then to believe that there is more to cricket betting and corruption than just the D company and people like that? Is it much more than that?
I'm afraid it is so, because if you do not have a proper system in place, if you do not have a proper legal regime in place, if you don't have a proper anti-corruption unit which can rope in the police and other law enforcement agencies like the Enforcement Directorate and the CBI and what have you, the situation is, on the surface, it appears that all is well, but you do not know what exactly is happening under the, veneer of all this gentlemanly game and all that. So, yes, the situation is rather grim, and we should take stock of it and do whatever we can.
Because you will agree, sir, that while on the cricketer side, the BCCI is doing or not doing what it's expected to do, but surely when money is being collected in every nook and corner of this country for betting, for the satta, and it is a violation of the Gambling Act, which is a predicate offense, and there is money laundering going on, the ED can definitely come in. I mean, I don't see any legal bar from the ED coming in and basically stopping everything that goes on outside the cricket field to facilitate this whole racket. But that is not happening, and it is time that these things are probably brought out in writings and stuff like that, so that the light is shone on a very dark corner.
All I can say, Javed, is that at the present, ED has better things to do, more important.
Yeah.
Yeah, and as far as the gangster part is concerned, obviously as cops, we all handled various kinds of gangsters. The gangsters in UP also have very strong Dubai connections, as you know. So why don't you tell us about the UP connection of the gangsters that you confronted, Neeraj, sir?
Again, I have to take some names which I would not like to take now because the program is being recorded. But we found direct linkages of the Mumbai underworld with some political parties in UP. I can take one name which I'm sure you would have heard of, Atiq Ahmed. Atiq Ahmed is a neta from UP.
Allahabad.
Yeah. So what is it called? Sorry?
Allahabad.
Allahabad is Atiq Ahmed, and several others. Romesh Sharma also, he was from UP and from Phulpur, as you know. And there's
Which
several,
is also Allahabad.
yes. So various linkages. UP, you are absolutely right. Even today, I can hazard a guess that they are in touch with the underworld and with our gang lords who are based abroad and who are still operating. So yes, and a lot of money comes into the UP politics. I can dare say that.
Right.
Yes, sir. For the benefit of, do I have 20 seconds, Mandy?
Sure. Go ahead. Last question then.
For the benefit of those who are not from the policing community and who don't have much knowledge of what happens in UP besides what you see on TV, the gang lords of UP are very different from what you find in either in the movies or even in Delhi. Here it is much more it is more brutal. There are people who have ponds with crocodiles in which undesirables are thrown so that the crocodiles can have a breakfast. These are realities. And we live in the real Wild West.
Wow.
Thanks, Mandy.
Yeah, thank you, Javed. That was wonderful. And thanks. Now, may I just sort of hand over to our very own Pitu Didar Singh, who's our co-host, and just for the ones who may not, who may have logged in for the first time, he's of course, a master's in history in '74, and he also taught in college, and he joined the IAS and retired as secretary of the Overseas Indian Affairs, and always put a little accent on the affairs, but that's another story. And then he was Secretary General of FICCI as well. So Pitu, over to you, and you can, I'm sure, host a lot of the questions and all which might come for Neeraj. So over to you. Thank you.
Thanks, Mandy. We are really running out of time, and we're going to have to open it up very soon. But before I open it up, just one question to Neeraj only. Neeraj is a batchmate, by the way, and here is my question to him. Neeraj, you had the opportunity to deal with this entire cricket corruption issue and the underworld at the same time. Didn't you feel personally scared of your own security? And aren't you scared about it now?
I'll be very frank, Pitu, I was not.
Oh, wow.
I'm still not. I believe that, the underworld, I don't know whether Javed would agree with me and other police officers who are listening would agree with me. These criminals have an unwritten code. And the unwritten code is that they think that the police people, they are doing their job, and there is nothing personal about the action that the police take. Unlike some of the white collar criminals who go after you and they make it personal. I was telling Mandy the other day that there is an income tax officer I booked while I was in CBI. He still hounds me in courts. I have a matter coming up tomorrow in the Delhi High Court. There is a very senior media person I booked in another case, and he still is waiting for opportunities to target me. And he puts up my picture on the TV channel, and for half an hour I'll be there on the screen, and people will be abusing me from different corners. So it is actually the white collar criminals who make it personal, and not these gangsters, not the regular criminals.
Wow, that's quite an important point that you've just shared with us. Thank you so much for your really superb talk, Neeraj, and from Khaki Files, where you've gone to this entire corruption and cricket scenario. All the very best with your book. Now we're going to open it up for discussion and any questions from the floor. So we have Manjeev Puri, Ambassador, who's asking the first question of all. So Manjeev, please go right ahead, and we'll go on to others. Manjeev, you might want to unmute yourself.
Thank you very much, sir. Neeraj, thank you very much. My association with this cricket and booking goes to the very first one. The year 2000, when that Hansi Cronje business happened, I was India's Consul General in Cape Town. And sir, give me a minute to just mention this. When the matter happened, and I heard it on the news, I called up KK Paul Saab here and asked him one question. Sir ji, aapne to jo karna hai kar diya, theek hai ya hamare muh pe bhi padne wali? All satisfied. But what did the South Africans do? Sir, they had a commission of inquiry, and no matter the fact that they also didn't have any laws, poor Hansi Cronje went, Herschel Gibbs was finished. That is what their institution, their board, and the other cricketing community did. What should be done to bookies, etc., is a different matter. But the sad part is, and Moni, I'm sorry that you are there and you have to hear this. Sad part is that it's our cricketing fraternity, which if it takes strong actions against cricketers, how will the two things happen? The clap won't happen. So the rest is, sir, we are all civil servants. We've all seen it. But, even a country like South Africa. And the second point I want to make to you is very interesting. Sir, when they came to us, asking us for, you have evidence, etc., we were extremely reticent. In fact, I'm not sure we did much on all of this. There is a need for a certain degree of cooperation if you want to get to the bottom of these things. Anyway, it's just a comment, sir. Thank you very much. It was lovely hearing you.
Thank you.
Neeraj, you want to react?
Yes. To set this record straight, Manjeev, it is not as if the cricketing community in India lets matters go. Here also very strict action was taken against, as you know, Azharuddin, Ajay Jadeja, and so on. But our whole system is such. Imagine Azharuddin becomes a member of parliament.
Correct.
And today he is a cricket administrator in Andhra Pradesh. It is so to that extent you are right. But he was banned. The ban was for life. Ajay Jadeja was banned, and so were the others. Even in the 2013 spot fixing case, Srishant was banned. He was sent to jail. Hansi Cronje never went to jail. He was banned, but he never went to jail. Yeah, but yes, you are right. They took the otherwise the strongest administrative action. But Hansi Cronje continued to be a national idol. Even after being painted with a black brush, and even till today, even though he is no more, he is a man much respected in South Africa.
Thank you so much, Neeraj, and thanks for your reaction to Manjeev. Manjeev, thanks for your question. We have Ranu Das who wants the next point to wake out here. Ranu, please go right ahead.
Neeraj, first of all, I have to thank you for giving me the book, the signed copy, but I also have to tell you that this actually made me a little unsociable on one of my recent family holidays because I kept on reading the book while everybody was having. It is absolutely fantastic book. I read it from cover to cover in a period of 3 or 4 days. If others on this uh, chat have not read the book, please do so. And Neeraj, I look forward to your next book with great anticipation. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ranu. That's very kind of you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Ranu. That was not a question, it was more of a comment, but thanks a lot for it. And anybody else now, we're opening the floor up to anybody who wants to talk or ask any question from Neeraj or from Javed or from Moni. Please go right ahead.
Pitu, there's a question on the chat box by Yash Sinha.
Go ahead. Please go ahead, Mandy. Please read it out.
Okay, it says, Yash is asking, shouldn't BCCI come under the RTI Act?
Yes, it should. But my understanding is that under the RTI Act, BCCI is not a public body. Therefore, it cannot be brought under the Act. But there is a very strong case for it to be subject to public scrutiny.
I think there Neeraj has correctly answered that since BCCI is not technically a government body and not a public body, it cannot really be coming under the Act. But this is something which needs actually a change of the Act. So I hope that at some stage people will look at this matter and see that even non-government bodies which are extremely important in the country do actually come under RTI in some manner. I hope that happens in the future. Any comments from Moni or from Javed on this matter? Okay.
Pitu, can I respond to that?
Certainly, please go right ahead, Moni.
This is a bit of a gray area about whether BCCI is a public body or a private body and whether it can come under RTI. The BCCI has consistently maintained it's a private body. But the fact is it receives various benefits from the government, various benefits. Also, when the Supreme Court went into the entire issue of the BCCI fixing and whatever, they said the reason we are interfering and looking at the matter is because cricket is of national importance and it is owned by fans. The BCCI is only a trustee. So there is a reason and maybe there's a justification for it to be looked at in that way, that it is, though a private body, it performs a role which makes it accountable to the public and is of national interest. So maybe down the line, these things will get sorted out. And as you said, maybe some of those bodies who are technically private will come under the Act.
Yeah. We have Yash Sinha himself here, who, as we all know, is the chairman of RTI and this whole public commission. Please go right ahead, Yash. Ask the question or give your comment.
Thank you, Pitu. Just to react to what Neeraj and Moni said, there is a decision by the Central Information Commission that the BCCI is a public authority and does come under the RTI Act, like all other sports federations. Some of the sport federations, most notably BCCI, has gone to the High Court, and if I remember correctly, Chennai High Court, Madras High Court has stayed the decision of the commission for the last, I think, 7 or 8 years now, which is preposterous in my opinion, but I don't want to be held in contempt. But just recently, field hockey went to court against CIC decision and lost. So all sports federations, whether they are helped by the government in any way, it's very specifically given in the Act, financially and otherwise. But I know BCCI is not helped financially, but any other assistance that is given, it becomes a public authority and comes under the RTI Act. But since the matter is sub judice, obviously none of us can really comment on what's going to happen, except argue the merits of the case either way. Thank you.
Thanks, Yash. Thank you very much for that clarification. Professor Gurmeet Singh has a question to ask, and then after that we'll go to Raghav. Thanks, Gurmeet.
My question is not a question in the real sense. Neeraj has been my classmate. I've read both of his books, which he wrote earlier, and I'm keenly looking forward to his third book, which he said he's going to be completing by mid-year. Very well done. This proves that chemists, wherever they are doing very well. It is proved in the case of Neeraj also. My question is, how much chemistry helped you in all this? That's it.
There was good chemistry between me and the gangsters.
That's very well answered.
Good one, good one. Typical Stephanian answer. Don't answer. Just put the ball into the slips. Okay. Here we go, Raghav. Raghav, please go ahead.
Thank you very much, Neeraj Kumar Saab. That was a brilliant discourse, and as usual, lovely hearing you. A quick question. Since we already have the provision of cheating under the Indian Penal Code, you require a separate law, because every new law that comes in means that it's another tool for exploitation. And will creating a separate law for violations in the field of sports not lead to stifling sports and the entire character of freedom and spiritedness, which is the essence of all sports? So, which country has evolved the best laws in this field? What is the right model to follow, if at all?
May I answer, Pitu?
Yes, Neeraj, please go ahead.
Yeah, so the answer to that question is that, I have not studied the laws in Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, Zimbabwe, and elsewhere. So I cannot make a comparative study and come to any conclusion. But as you heard, that the Karnataka High Court only last week has come out with an order that match fixing is not cheating, which is very strange, because there is another judgment in which the court said that if this is not cheating, then what is? Because when anyone goes to see a match, he goes under this belief that everyone will play to his optimum and nobody will underperform. So one legal opinion is that it is very much cheating. The other legal opinion is what you have heard, that it is not cheating. So it is in the gray area, and that is why we need a clear-cut law which defines, things like being compromised, throwing away matches, underperforming, and so on and so forth. So far, the experience has been that not even one case of match fixing registered as a case of cheating has succeeded in a court of law.
Wow, that is quite something. Thanks for that, Neeraj. You have clarified, but I still go with what Raghav says. Raghav has a point to make that more and more laws don't really help us. So maybe from the existing law itself, if we were to add to the law or make some amendments in it, maybe that's the answer really in handling this whole issue. Just like we were talking about, Yash said that they have passed an order on the RTI matter. Similarly, if they could do the same thing for match fixing in a manner, we would be able to then address it. Okay, so we have any more questions, please, gentlemen and ladies? It's open. Mandy, anything from the chat group?
I think we more or less covered some of the questions that are popped in there. But if somebody wants to go ahead.
Okay, Moni wants to say something. Moni, go ahead.
No, I want to ask Neeraj a question. Neeraj has had this huge experience of, cricket cases, bookies, betting, and so on. And he's done, a stint with the BCCI. If you were to have a second innings with the BCCI as the anti-corruption head, what would you do?
Lots of things. Because first of all, the anti-corruption education program that we give to the cricketers, we have to tell them what all they should look for, how to avoid being compromised, and what are the consequences if they fall into that trap. So first is to, make the anti-corruption education program more robust. The second thing is that to get more intelligence from the ground level and follow up that intelligence to its logical conclusion. I'll just give you an example. There are hundreds and thousands of bookies, and there is no central database on anywhere. The ACSU, or the Anti-Corruption Unit of the BCCI, should come forward and create that database. We try to do that. We proactively try to collect information and fed that, and it helped us a lot during vetting for accreditation during cricket matches, because all sorts of undesirable elements were coming into the inner reaches of stadia, and also coming in touch with the cricketers and so on. So to have a better system, more efficient system of intelligence gathering, and to keep upgrading the database against persons of interest is another thing that I would do. And third thing is that press for more resources and have a wider footprint all over the country. Most of the places in the country are not covered. And one shortcut to that, achieving that goal, is to involve the state cricket associations. Every state cricket association can have an anti-corruption officer who can be paid a small amount of money as a salary, and he can provide us information from the ground level. But all this requires, meeting of minds, everybody coming together, and you are familiar with what goes on in the state associations. And in fact, they are not the cause. I mean, they are not the solution to the problem. In fact, they are part of the problem. So that is how things stand today.
Neeraj, you mentioned in your presentation the Rajwada Premier League, where an official organizer, private league, invited celebrities, and it was in every way. Incidentally, there is this education program of the BCCI where players of each state are sort of exposed to what are the problems, what they should be careful about. So in your presentation, one of the person mentioned as suspect was the gentleman who ran this Rajwada Premier League. And the same person continues to be the vice president of the association, even today. So while he is being presented as a person who is suspect, he's still holding office in the same state, even today.
Exactly. You are stating the problem, Moni, and you know the system better. I mean, you should tell us what is the way to weed out these people. In fact, such people, I'm sorry to say, are almost there in most cricket associations. People who are, and I would just like to tell the audience that the root cause of the problem is the huge amount of money that is doled out to all the cricket associations by the BCCI, something to the tune of 35 to 40 crores every year, when their total expenditure, I mean, even if you ask them to prepare a plan of how they want to promote cricket in their respective jurisdictions, their plans will amount to something like 30 to 40 lakhs. And here they are getting in crores. And if any one of you has read the book by Ramchandra Guha, he writes that in one of the meetings of the Committee of Administrators, Deloitte made a presentation. Deloitte audited the accounts of the BCCI, and it made a presentation that the state associations had bought cars, they had bought flats for their office bearers, for their members. They had bought gold coins, they had bought Rolex watches for their members out of these funds, which are meant for promotion of cricket in their states. This is all on record because he was present in the meeting and he took notes and he has, written about it. So that is where the problem is. I mean, I don't know how to meet this challenge, because the state associations are actually the cause they are there in selection, they are there in every stage of when the cricketer is coming up. Some of you will remember that Virat Kohli, he gave an interview that he was his father was asked to pay 20 lakhs of rupees when he was being considered for the state team, Delhi state team. And his father said, I will not give that money. And Virat said in that interview that he wept for a week because he missed out on becoming a member of the team because his father could not pay that bribe. And our inquiries also showed that boys were being asked for sexual favors. Their parents were being asked for sexual favors. So, the rot is very, very deep, unfortunately. And despite that, it is a great marvel and hats off to our cricketers that in the face of all these odds, they come up and they perform at the world arena and bring us glory.
Neeraj, I think
Wonderful.
we've been focusing on betting, fixing, compromising matches, etc. But I think what you mentioned now about this so-called selection bazaar, I think that's a major problem, and it's been under the radar for a long time. But it's rampant. It's prevalent practically everywhere. It's more severe in some states, not as bad in other places. But this is something which everybody needs to be careful about. See, there's quite a lot of money for cricketers playing for a state now. An average Ranji Trophy cricketer will earn at least 20 lakhs a year. So, and there's huge money if you make it to the IPL. So people are willing to, bribe their way up. Parents are willing to pay that money to, take their kids' career forward. So that's a major issue and a major source of corruption now. It's not just betting and fixing and underperforming.
Thanks, Amrit, and thanks, Neeraj. We have another question coming in from Himanshu Danda. Please go ahead, Himanshu ji.
Yeah, this question is for Neeraj, sir. You mentioned that when you were head of the anti-corruption unit at BCCI, that you only had 2 people under you. You didn't have a staff to be able to do it. There was a recent report in the papers that BCCI has increased its legal fees budget from 123 crores to some 1,000 crores. So which are the cases they are fighting? If they can't give you the money, who are they fighting and what are they fighting about?
We are fighting amongst themselves.
Neeraj, be careful. This is all under record.
I don't care.
No, but who is it? Is it the past secretaries and the presidents fighting against each other or what?
The main case is, that our present president and secretary, Moni will bear me out. I know their term expired more than a year back, and they ought to have relinquished charge because according to the LODA committee recommendations, the total tenure, the cumulative tenure of an office bearer can be only 9 years. So both Mr. Ganguly and Mr. Jay Shah have far outlived their tenure, but they're continuing because they have gone to the Supreme Court and said, well, our tenures are over. Please tell us what we should do. So this is one of the legal matters for which the BCCI is spending money. And there are any number of such cases.
Wonderful, wonderful. Anybody else? We are really going to have to close very soon now. So
can I just answer Raghav?
Yes. Please go ahead, Javed. Please go ahead.
Yeah, Raghav had asked about the laws in different jurisdictions. I think the Australian Cricket Australia has organized that every state, it's a federation, so every state has a law and it defines the people who are under it. That includes the physios, the pitch in charges, anyone who's connected with the team, obviously the players also. They have a very clear-cut responsibility fixed on the state associations. And I think that is one of the most effective laws which is which is present today, because since this law came in Australia, at least within the Australian cricket community, there have not been many scandals. Unlike in UK, for example. In both these jurisdictions, betting is legal. So even from the betting point of view, they have ensured that because people are betting and they are expecting fair play, so if you are not not performing to your potential, then you are cheating the people who are putting money in the bet. So that kind of law is very effective in Australia and has been there for a while. So in case India wants to start, they have a template which is available. Secondly, the BCCI has what is called the anti-corruption
Code.
advisory or code or whatever it is. But as Neeraj said and Moni said, it's just there like many other laws that we have, and there is very little teeth behind enforcing it. So that is how it is. So I think ultimately there's a need to shine a lot of light on all this muck that is going around. People are so if I may say so, reticent. I remember once there was that same conference that Neeraj Saab was talking about. The CBI had proposed that betting should be made legal. There was a seminar on this, and we had proposed in 2012 or 13. The CBI had proposed that betting should be made legal in India. Obviously, nothing has happened about that, and someone should pick up the thread on that. I would suggest.
There's an observation here by Sanjay Sethi, who's saying that not only in limited over matches there is fixing, but it also takes place in test matches. And then he's given us some links to an Al Jazeera interview. So for people who might want to look at the chat box, please.
Yeah, thanks. I've just thanked Sanjay for it, and that'll be a good link to look up and learn some more about this whole issue. But what is being just mentioned by Javed, this whole matter of legalizing betting, I think after so many years we've come to that stage that we have to seriously look at that aspect also in the country. And there are papers, I remember in FICCI we had done some papers on it and submitted to government. And I hope that government will look at that matter in a more serious manner. Because if you legalize betting, then half the problem itself is going to be over right there. But anyway, that's a different topic for another day. And we can talk about it at some other time. At the moment, there's no more questions. We'd have to now do our final usual thanks to everybody kind of thing. But before I do that, one more last question. Yes, Neeraj, go ahead.
No, on this thing about legalizing betting, I just want to make a comment.
Sure.
If you legalize betting, who are the people who will bet legally or who will bet with their white money? People who will bet through their cards or say, through checks and so on, leaving behind a paper trail. They will be small bettors like you and me who put say 200 rupees, 500 rupees on a match, and we'll be betting through our credit card or debit card. Now remember that the big punters who bet in khokhas and petis, by khokha I mean crores and lakhs. Now they will not bet legally. They will continue to bet using their black money. And do not forget that the corruption in the game is not done by people who bet legally, but by these people who are betting with their black money. So legalizing betting in India, I do not think is going to solve the problem of fixing and corruption in cricket.
Pitu, you're on mute, please.
Yeah. Thanks for that comment. Neeraj, you have a very valid point that you've made. But here the betting we're talking about is not just for sports. We're talking about every kind of betting. You've been to Goa and you've seen the wonderful betting that takes place in all those casinos which are parked in the water just to make sure that they're not on land. And that's a wonderful way to go, and I think the country is going to go down that route in some manner or the other. there's a lot of money involved, and there's a lot of, well, this whole thing is a business actually. I mean, cricket and sports have become a very major business, which is the reason that so many people are interested in it in some manner or the other. So before we close now, any final comments, any final question by anybody? It's all open now, and then we'll close in after another 2-3 minutes. Okay, so I have nobody who's questioning or adding anything more. So may I take this opportunity to thank Neeraj profusely, as usual, for being such a good panelist and such a good speaker who's shared his views in this very important and topical matter. Javed and Moni for adding to the panel and ensuring that Neeraj is questioned deeply about what he's talking about. And Mandy, as usual, the great pun master of college and SKT, who's kept us going in this wonderful manner. Thank you so much for all of you being here. Our usual thanks to Pasreech and company for hosting this on Zoom, as they always do so nicely for us every time. Thank you very much for that, I.L.A, Pasreech and company. And also thanks to the Alumni Association and the principal St. Stephen's College for putting this information out. We've got a very good response both in our participation in Zoom as well as on YouTube. So thank you very much, everybody, for being with us. And now we call it a day and return to our single malt. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Well said. I was betting you would say that, Pitu. Thank you all. Bye.
Thank you.
Cheers.
But thank you.